Hey everyone, it's your favorite host, Marcus of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today we have an incredible speaker. This man is known throughout the United States and countries outside the United States as well. This man is changing our habits, the mindset of what we do with our money and how we spend our money, and do it the Christian way, the godly way. You won't want to miss 1 second of this incredible powerhouse speaker that we're bringing to the stage today. Here we go. Hey everyone, I am so excited to bring this man to the stage, Mr. Bob Lotich. This man's story is profound. He found himself 20 years ago at the breaking point, overwhelmed with debt and money problems that we all have been there. And some of us are even still going through it today. He is helping families across the globe get to a better financial space. But even still, over 20 years ago, in the early 20s, he was stranded 1,000 miles from home with only $7 to his name. And after crying out to God for wisdom and discovering a simpler way, an approach to money, he reached a level of financial freedom him and his wife and his family have now achieved. And we're going to dive deep to this episode, and we're going to ask the really important questions that I have been waiting for all week. Help me welcome to the stage the incredible Mr. Bob Lotich.
Marcus, so glad to be here, man. Excited to chat. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, sir. I am excited. This is an honor.
Me too.
Sir, you have an incredible mind, and you could do anything. You've done a number of different things. Why finance? Why the focus on money? You help families accomplish so many different things. Why money?
Yeah. It's just where God led me. Like, that's what it comes down to. Like, it's just one of those things where I don't feel like I picked this path. I feel like God just kind of picked it and directed me in it. And one of the things I'm often talking to people about in terms of finding their calling and finding the thing that God has gifted them to do is to look at what has happened in your life. Look at what's happened in your world. And a lot of times there's clues based on your circumstances, the things that God's brought you through, that he might want to use you in the capacity to help others. And so that's really what the story of my life is.
That is huge. And that's so true. God takes us down a path that we oftentimes didn't even see coming, right? We didn't often expect, but it's also the most humbling experience on how the path to get there, how we get there. And then when we get there, it seems so effortless. It seems so like, this is where I'm supposed to be. It feels so right. And is that the same for you? Was that the same for you? You ever thought you'd be talking about money and teaching to the masses?
No, I mean, that's 100% it. Because when I go back and look at maybe jobs or career paths that I was in, for example, I was in the corporate world, wanting to climb the corporate ladder, and it felt like a grind. It felt like I was working so hard and just not getting anywhere. And then when I kind of stepped into the things that God has naturally gifted me for, like you're saying, it just feels like butter. It feels like you're on roller skates going downhill with the wind at your back. It's just a different thing. It doesn't even feel like work,
Very true. Very true. One of the things I wanted to ask you, you were stranded thousands of miles in the early 20s. You were stranded thousands of miles from home with $7 to your name. How did that happen? Can I ask, how did that happen?
Yeah. So long story short, I was at a point in my kind of growth with God where I felt like he called me on a sabbatical out of St. Louis, Missouri, where I grew up. And so I was down in this beach town in Florida, kind of living the dream a little bit, living in a beach time, had a convertible. It was Friday. I had just gotten paid. My friends were coming down the next day for my 21st birthday to celebrate. Like, everything was going good. But as I just picked up my paycheck and was on my way to the bank to cash it, the car just stopped moving. Like, in the middle of the road, just dies, like right in the middle of the road. And and there was a baseball game being played, a minor league baseball game, actually, just like right next to me. And so all these cars are driving by, everybody's staring. And I'm having this moment where it's like, I don't really know what to do. I'm not a car guy. I'm pretty clueless about all this. And so I'm sitting there, and as I'm thinking about like the car, it's like I'm realizing all these other things are starting to pile up in my brain, because I'm like, if I don't get this check cashed and then get it to my landlord in the next 3 hours when it's due, then she's going to tack on a $50 late fee, which for a lot of people, that's not that big a deal. But for me at that point, I didn't have the extra $50 because my paycheck was just enough to cover my rent, which is a whole nother problem that I wasn't even considering. And so I'm now in this car thinking like, all right, how am I going to get this car towed, fixed, and get to the bank to cash it and get to my landlord all in the next 3 hours? And I wasn't even thinking about tomorrow or the next day or the next month. Like I was just so like my financial world was kind of collapsing on top of me. And it was just kind of then when I had my freak out moment, and I kind of came to Jesus and said, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to my money. Like, if you have a better plan than this mess that I've made, I want to hear it and I want to follow your path. And that was kind of where the whole thing started for me.
Amen. Amen. That is phenomenal. And man, you are speaking to me. How I can't tell you how many times I've been put in those difficult situations where I didn't see a way out. And
Yeah.
I think that's what he wants, right? I think that's the goal, is to
Dependence on him. Yeah.
put us in those precarious moments where we just have to reach. You can't do anything else except reach out to him. That's what
Yeah.
he wants.
Yeah.
So phenomenal, sir. Phenomenal. You wrote the book. Got to talk about the book. You wrote the book, literally, Simple Money, Rich Life. But money
Yeah.
itself isn't simple. How did you what tell us about the book? What can readers expect from this
Yeah.
book? How is it going to help us?
Yeah. So the book in general, just high level, we pretty much taken, from like we just mentioned, like my early beginnings, which were pretty rough financially. Over the years, like God has done so many miracles in our financial life. And we've gotten to a point where, just about a year and a half ago, like we reached one of our biggest financial milestones, probably the biggest for us. It was that we reached a point we had given away $1 million by age 40, and it was just a goal that we had had for a long, long time. And so basically, this book is kind of the operating manual that we followed to kind of go from our financial mess to increase our income, to manage money more effectively, with less effort, and to fall in love with giving and having a whole lot, just a lot of fun on this adventure of being able to give and impact people's lives. And so the book just is really everything that we did, from the super practical stuff to the mindset shift to the principles, all of it rolled up into one big package. But the name, Simple Money, Rich Life, like you were kind of mentioning, the simple component is, I have found, because I used to work in the financial services industry, I found that a lot of the industry is designed to make us believe that managing money is really complicated and it needs to be really difficult. And the only way to really succeed is if you're some sort of financial expert. And that just couldn't be further from the truth. Everything, the most important things are actually really simple to do. And that's why we did what we did with this book. And we tried to break it down, take, all the complicated noise of the financial industry and make it into the simple little tasks that we need to do in order to thrive financially. And so, that's what the book's about.
I love that. I love that. And that's major. And that needed to be said, because there's so many financial gurus and it can be overwhelming. So many financial gurus out there tell you what you can't do with your money, but
Yeah.
you and your wife and your family and this book takes a different approach, and it actually shares with you what you can do. Tell us,
Yeah.
what are some things that we can do with our money, and how can we not have to necessarily cut costs all the time?
Yeah. So, part of what, I'm always trying to teach people and help people with is, you have options on how you spend your money, and everybody knows this, but it's like we also forget about it. And so what I want to help people do is actually spend more money on the things that they really care about and that they really value and that are important to them. But the way that you do that is twofold. It's by cutting out the things you don't really care about. And it starts with identifying the things that are really important to you. Okay. So that's just important. And so in our life, in my wife and I, it's like giving and being able to give a high percentage of our income is something that's really important to us. And so what that requires, especially if you don't have a super high salary, what that requires is finding the things that are not what you care about that much, where it's just like, I don't really care that much about it, but you're still spending money on it. So how can you change that? So let me give you a quick example here. So like for us, there's a lot of people who drive a car and they'll spend $400 or $500 a month on a car payment because they want to have a brand new car and they want to every 2 years or something get a brand new car. And it's like, if that's the thing you love, if that's what's really important to you, it's like, great, you can do that. But for us, that's not that important to me. And so for me, I'm much more of a point A to point B type of guy. And so I'm fine driving a 5 to 7 year old car, that's well taken care of and that's nice. And I'll make that trade any day so that Linda and I can go out to a nice dinner 4 times a month. And I so much would rather do that, drive around in our 5 to 7 year old car, going to 4 nice dinners a month, than I would having a brand new car and not having any money to go out to dinner. So it's just a matter of choices and what's important to you. But the point is, you got to identify the things that aren't that important to you and then chop those out so you can focus on the things that are.
I told you guys, Bob Lotich spilling the tea on the Gentleman Style Podcast show. That is huge. It sounds like priorities, setting up your priorities. What is truly, truly important? What does God say? What's important? What should be important in your life? I think COVID-19, the pandemic, showed a lot of us what was important, and he took it all away. Right? We placed our jobs before our marriages. We placed our employer over our kids, our children, and then God took those away and then left you with what should have been the focus all along. In some cases, I'm not making light of anyone losing a family member or a loved one. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying God does that intentionally to show you what really should have been the focus all along. That's what I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, you've probably heard this too, but I've heard a surprising number of people who said that in a weird roundabout way, like they're thankful for not the pandemic, but the time that the way everything changed because it helped them to recalibrate and identify what's most important to them. And like you're talking about family and whatever these things might be. So it's really interesting how these really challenging things, if we allow them, can bring out the good.
Sir, I wanted to ask the question that's been on my mind all day, because this wasn't something you and your wife just started. In order to give $1 million, that has to be a process. That's not something you guys just woke up and said, we're going to give $1 million today. This is something you've been doing, you and your wife have been doing since the beginning, over a period of I think 5-10 years. You started giving your age, your percentage based off of your age, which is incredible. And I love the concept. I think you guys started at 31.
Yep.
And you gave, and every year you gave more because you grew older. How did you do that? Where did that develop from? How did that concept come?
So that was another thing. Like, so I'll tell you the story because this is really cool. So I was age 31 and we had paid off all of our credit card debt. We had paid off our student loans. We had paid off car loans. We had all that was gone. All we had left was our mortgage at that point. And I remember I had a plan in place. It was going to take 3 to 4 years based on the amount of money we were putting towards principal each month to get our mortgage paid off. And that's awesome. We were 3 or 4 years away from paying off our mortgage. But I'm a typical American. And I remember praying and went to this field and prayed. And I was praying to God and asking, like, I want to do this faster. Can we get this paid off faster in 3 to 4 years? And I remember walking in this field praying, and it wasn't an audible voice, but it was super clear to me in my heart. I felt like God said, if you really want to see me move on your finances, I want you to begin giving your age as a percentage of your income. And I stopped in my tracks. I looked up to the sky and was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, who does that? And at the time we were given like 11% or something. And so I remember then I started kind of doing the calculations in my head, trying to figure out if we can even do it, if we'll be able to buy groceries or what the thing might be. And so as I'm like, my mind's, going a million different directions, but this didn't just come out. This wasn't a thought of mine. It was really clear it was from God. And so I'm like trying to think through all this. And then my next thought is kind of frustration, because it's like, God, I just came to you praying to help us get our mortgage paid off faster. And you just basically told me to give all of our extra money away. So now it's going to take like 10 years to pay off our mortgage. And I've been tithing all these years, so I was kind of like, had this Pharisaical kind of thing where it's like, I thought I had done all the stuff where God should do for me because I've been so generous and I've tithed for all these years and all this stuff. And anyway, but in the midst of this, like, I didn't feel like God had this heavy-handed thing of like, you better do this or else. It felt like an invitation to step out on an adventure with him. It felt like it's this gentle opportunity that he was placing before me to say, hey, I got something really cool here if you want to do it. And so I went home and I talked to Linda, and that's exactly what she said too. She's like, I don't think God would be asking us to do this unless there was something really great on the other side of it. And so with that month, we began giving 31% of our income. And the most amazing thing, the mind-blowing thing, was that 10 months later, not 3 years, not 10 years, but 10 months later, our mortgage was paid off. And I have no idea how God did it. Like, to this day, I can't tell you all the specifics of how it happened, but I know that it happened. And I'm like, that's amazing. You know what I mean?
Amen. 10 months later, mortgage paid off just by giving, y'all. And that's a Dave Ramsey quote. No one has ever gone broke from giving. Yeah. You can't give too much. You can't give more than enough to outpace your giving. That is, oh my gosh. Round of applause, Bob Lotich, y'all.
A round of applause to the Lord. He's the one who did
it. Amen. We have one quick commercial break. You guys don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I'm Marcus Norman, bringing fresh vibes to hot topics surrounding culture, relationships, business, finance, sex, dating, faith, and everything in between. Whether you're into passive income opportunities, trending topics and useful relationship tips, or dynamic guest speakers, there's something for everyone. You can expect all that and more every week. If you're down with this content, then consider joining our growing community by subscribing to Gentleman Style Podcast and smash the bell to get on our VIP list. Your support means the world. Thanks for watching. Link to my channel.
Good day, podcast listeners. This is your boy, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I wanted to let you guys know that we will be rolling out a new feature and adding a join sponsor button next to the subscriber button here at the bottom of your screen. Once you click the button, it will display 3 membership levels. Gentleman Gentry, which is our entry level, Duke Duchess, which is our season level, and the Emperor and Empress, which is our most sophisticated level, which you will receive unique perks and benefits at each differing level and gain access to our community tab. We will also be sharing polls, upcoming events, and interviews, as well as receive feedback from our sponsors directly. Your support helps me find new and exciting guests to bring to the stage live. Well, in order to get the higher end speakers, it requires, you guessed it, money. So thank you for tuning in to my channel. And if becoming a sponsor sounds good to you, then select the join button below and choose your desired sponsor level. Let's continue to grow and serve the future of generations of men and women to come. Love you guys. Bye. We are back to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. We have the incredible Bob Lotich at seedtime.com. This man wrote the book on giving and finance and spiritual, godly money habits that we all should follow and be following. He literally wrote the book. Next to the Bible, this is the next best thing. That's what I attest this book to. but this is incredible. Sir, how did you come up with the name Seed Time? That's the name of your company, your organization. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different pieces to it, but the short thing, so it comes from Genesis 8:22, where God talks about 4 different things that will always remain, and one of them is seed time and harvest. And so I've just been fascinated by this because I've observed with God that almost everything that He does starts really small. It starts with a seed, you know, and in many cases that's a thought. And so as I've observed my financial life and the growth that we've had, the impact and the higher levels that we've had, it all started with something really, really small. And as I look at like anyone's financial journey, like it's all pretty much the same. It starts with these small things that that we plant, that we're consistent with and watering or whatever, and then they ultimately grow to be something significant. But it all starts with a seed, and so that's kind of why we call it seed time.
Amen. Man, I love that. I had my thoughts, but I never want to assume. I always want the speaker to speak on why, how do you come up with it? Because it's so unique. And if you're not a Christian, now you know where that comes from. Plant a seed. Sir, how did you do? I did my research. I did some digging. How did you take a full year off from work? How did you make that happen? Please spill some tea on that.
Yeah, so this yet again was another thing that God invited me to do. That this wasn't my idea. I didn't want to do it, to be honest with you. But it was in 2017 or 18. I think it was 17. I'm not sure. But long story short, we had taken a 1-month sabbatical. We do that every single year. It's been a rhythm we've done for about 10 years. And at the end of that 1-month sabbatical, as I was praying, I felt like God said, I want you to continue and keep going and finish the whole year, take the whole year off. So I wasn't prepared for it or anything. And it was really scary, like, because again, like we had a business we've been working on for almost a decade. And I felt like, am I just walking away from my business for an entire year? Like, is it going to be there when I get back? Like, how are we going to do this? But again, it felt like this gentle invitation from God to go on an adventure. And it ended up being one of the most transformative years of my life, and all the good that came out of it. Like, I don't think this book would be here if it wasn't for that. We ended up, I mean, long story short, we ended up adopting our daughter, like whatever, 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 weeks after I agreed to kind of go on this year-long sabbatical. And so anyway, there's just so many kind of miraculous things that God did through it all. But at the end of the day, like, God was the one who provided. I mean, there are certain things with our business, with it being an online business and being able to schedule things out, that we were able to kind of sustain it over that time. Wasn't much growth during the time, but we were able to sustain it. But yeah, you can direct me anywhere you want to go from there, Marcus.
No, you answered the question absolutely the way I was hoping, and so it came from God. The invitation came from God, and you. One of the things I keep hearing consistently that you're doing that a lot of us don't do is we don't move when He speaks. We want to question it. We want to linger. We want to, God, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't smell right. Let me get my finances together. Let me get the adoption papers together. No, you consistently, every time He spoke to you, move when He said to move. And
and it's not, this isn't easy. I mean, everybody knows that it's not easy. And I have the same things I wrestle through when I hear something that's like, oh, are you sure? But at the end of the day, like, I didn't sign up to walk with God, to just be halfway. It's like, I want to be all in or not, and I've just kind of always been that my whole life. It's like, if I'm going to do something, I'm just going to do it all the way. Like, otherwise there's no point in doing it. And so I think that mindset helps a little bit, but also every time that I do something where it feels like a big stretch of faith, the next one is a little bit easier because I've seen Him come through. I've seen Him, cover us on this. I've seen Him sustain us on this. And so, when I can think back to those moments, it makes it a little bit easier when the next one arrives,
Sir, what are some tips? Because some people, I can't even lie, I struggle with giving at
Mhm.
times,
Yeah.
right? What are some tips? And you share these nuggets in the book. What are some tips that we can adopt that make giving easier and more fun?
Yeah. So one of my favorite things that we did that just made it so much more fun for me was uh, basically budgeting for giving. Okay. So the beginning of the month, when money comes in, $1,000 comes in at the beginning of the month or whatever it is, um, every single month we automatically siphon off a partition or a portion of that, and we put it into a separate account. Once it's in an account, it's no longer ours, as far as I'm concerned. So it still has our name on the account, but that money, once it's in there, it is now designated for spontaneous giving to wherever the Lord leads us. And that has made it so much more fun because it feels like we're giving someone else's money away. So we have this account that's accumulating money, and then we see a need arise or something where it's like, oh, I'd love to help do this or that. And the money's right there. And it's just been a game changer for us for giving, because what we it used to look like was all of our money is in one big account. And then, something happens where it's like, oh, we'd love to give to that. It's like, oh, well, we got to buy groceries and we got to buy shoes for the kids. And so, yeah, maybe next month. And we just keep pushing things down the road. But now, since it's siphoned off into a separate category, it's like that's not a conversation. It's not a discussion. It's not even a thought. And so it's just added so much freedom to it. And it keeps us on our toes where we're actually looking around, looking for opportunities to use that money.
I love that. I love that. And that's huge. And so you say it, so he's a great speaker, y'all. He's an incredible speaker. You can tell he speaks full time. This is what he does. He's a professional. And yeah, the audience is loving it. They're asking what was we have a question from one of our VIP sponsors
Yeah.
of the show, Miss Nikki Brown. She asked, please share your process. What was your prayer? I'm assuming it's in regards to your giving. What was your
Yeah.
prayer like in giving?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think how to answer this. If
Take
we
your
go
time.
back to that, oh, go ahead.
No, I said take your time.
Yeah. So if we go back to the whole thing of giving our age, that um, I think the prayer was, God, please, I don't want to look like an idiot. Like I don't want to give so much that we can't pay our bills and all that stuff. Like, so that, very raw and real prayer. And I mean, I had to work through that. And even after we started giving that 31%, it was still, yeah, there were still months where I'm like, this is just crazy. Like, no one does this. Why am I doing this? But I'm so glad that we did, because we saw so many miracles through it, and we saw God come through in so many different ways. And so, I told you a thing about how we paid off our mortgage, and that's awesome. But the even cooler thing was that, like I said, we went from 11% to 31% at that point. And so what that meant was it was about an extra 20%. A lot of that went to the seed account. And so we have basically an influx of cash that we're ready to give away to all these different situations. And because of that, and because we were looking for opportunities, there were just so many fantastic things, miracles that God did that we got to be a part of through our giving, and so many memories that we created through that giving. And so yeah, it was great for us. It was just a win-win all the way around. And I love how God does that. It's like there's always these positive byproducts of obedience to Him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What was your most memorable giving? What was the one? Thank you, Miss Nikki Brown. Great question, by the way. Thank you for being a VIP sponsor of the show. What was your most memorable giving experience? Any
Yeah. I mean,
anyone stick out?
yeah, there's a lot that I'll remember to the day I die. One of the ones we share in the book, though, that I actually have a picture of. I caught a picture of it. Was just so great. Was really, really early on. We were so broke. We were, trying to pay off all of our credit card debt and everything. I mean, we were at this point living off like $45 a week for groceries and really tight. And I remember it was with my sister, actually, and she was in college at the time, and she was using my parents' desktop computer to write her papers and whatever. And it was so old, so slow, the type of thing where you press a key and it takes 3 seconds to show up on the screen, like just terrible. And so it was slowing her down. Like, she really needed a new computer, and she wanted a laptop so she could go take it different places and all this. And I remember thinking, man, that would be so nice to be able to do that for her. Like, we don't have the money to do that, to buy $1,000 laptop. We were at the point where most birthday presents were like $10. That's about what we were spending. But I remember like just this desire in my heart to want to be able to do that for her. And so I prayed. I'm like, God, if there's any way that you can kind of set something up so we could help and make this happen. And as I was praying, I sensed him lead me to like start looking at garage sales. And so I started going to garage sales. I ended up finding, I know a little bit about computers, and I ended up finding this really great computer for $75, and which was still a big stretch financially for us at that point. But I'm like, I think this is it. And I think we can pull this off. And so we ended up buying this thing, and then we bought our laptop case and put it in there. And so for her birthday was coming up. And so we go ahead and give her this laptop case with a laptop inside, hand it to her, and she opens it up and sees the laptop bag, and she's so excited, like just to get a laptop bag because she really wants a laptop. And so she's really pumped about that and saying thank you. I'm like, hey, you should probably open it up. And said she opens it up, pulls out the laptop, and I mean, just screaming. Her face was priceless. It was just one of those moments where it's like, honestly, it was one of the first moments where I realized this is what giving can feel like. Like, this is what can happen. It's like, we didn't do anything that remarkable. Like, we were going to buy our birthday gift no matter what, but we just, prayed. We watched God kind of set us up in a position where we could do something. Like, he connected us with the deal. We went a little bit above and beyond what we'd normally do. And anyway, and God just created this really cool moment that forever has reminded me how good giving can be. And so that's what we're chasing after. And it's like, I know there's times where there's sacrificial giving where it's like, it doesn't necessarily feel fun, but this opportunity is available to us all the time. Like, we're walking past opportunities like this all the time. And I just don't want to miss many,
I am. Oh my gosh, that is huge, sir. I need your advice here, because there are people in relationships, right? This is easy now. You and your wife have worked diligently onto the Lord and worked hard to be able to give the way and serve the way you have been. But I'm sure that journey hasn't always been easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so how did the money conversations go? Because money is a big point in most relationships and a point of stress and contention in most marriages. How did you and your wife develop that and work on that and build it out to where you are today?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the thing. We all, I don't know if I've met a single married couple where they had exactly the same financial upbringing. You know what I mean? Even if they're both middle class or something, like, everyone views money so much differently. And so everyone's parents and then what they learned from them about money, it's so different. So of course, when you come together, like, you have different perspectives on money and how you want to do things. And so we were no different. We had very different backgrounds in how we spend money and what we thought about money and what we thought we should do with money. And so, like most couples, we had to work through that, and we had to figure out, how do we get on the same page? Not do we agree on everything all the time, but how do we get in a spot where we can be in unity so we can move forward together as a couple? And for us, a lot of it had to do with me. And so I've always been the money guy. I've been the math guy, the guy running spreadsheets and stuff like that. Whereas Linda is the one who I always call her affectionately the certified spender of all of our money. And so with that dynamic of her just being the one running out and spending, and me being the one tends more towards saving, tends more toward creating the budget, like, we had to work through some of that stuff. So when we got married, just kind of thought that I'm right when it comes to money, because I have the spreadsheets, I did the math, and this is what it is, and this is how much you should spend. Linda, this is what you should spend. If you spend more than that, you're wrong, type of thing. And God kind of revealed to me that he put us together for a reason, for a purpose, and that he created her with intentionality, and the way she's created is not wrong. And therefore, she has value to add to not only to our marriage, but also to our finances and the way that we spend money. And so even though, if I look at this strictly from a math perspective, I might say, this is the way we should spend money. God's vantage point and perspective is so much higher and all-encompassing than just this simple, narrow little view of the math. So what that led to for me was really having to humble myself and to invite her into how we spend money and really yield to some of her ideas that maybe weren't exactly what I was thinking was ideal. But as I did that, as I humbled myself and allowed her to kind of determine that we were going to spend more in a particular category than I thought was maybe best, then she yielded. And so we're both like kind of mutually yielding and submitting in this area. And that ultimately led to us being in unity. So that was a really powerful lesson for me. And so maybe that'll help somebody out there.
You're speaking to me. You're helping me, and that's true. That I know for a fact that's going to help couples, because the word submission comes up so often in the Bible, and modern day relationships. It's still a big question mark for many couples on, I only submit to a man, or I only submit to my wife or a husband, or this and that. And you saw the transformation when you began to work with your partner.
Yep.
Instead of my way is the best way, and through that submission to her, she was open to submitting to you, and it became a mutual exchange. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and to be fair, like, just to be clear, it wasn't that she was waiting around, but I just noticed, like, 'cause this was God dealing with me. And at the time I wasn't even thinking of it in terms of submission. I was just thinking of it as God was showing me how to improve our financial unity. And that involved me just listening to what she had to say more and adding more value to the words that were coming out of her mouth, in regards to finances, because I kind of arrogantly previously just thought I'm the one who's got the money stuff. Like, you're the one who's screwing up our money. Like, I'm trying to keep this boat afloat, And so that's how I thought of it. Looking back, I now see it through that lens a little bit more. And I can identify that I think this mutual submission between the two of us really helped us out.
Love it. Sir, we have another question from our VIP sponsor, Miss Nikki. This is a good one. This is a long one. She asked the question, how do you balance your giving? How do you determine where the money goes? I'm a huge giver and believe in God for my future husband. What advice can you share?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. Ultimately, I hate to give a pat answer, but I think ultimately it comes down to, where God is leading you to give. And so in our case, like I said, we give our age as a percentage of our income. I'm very, very convinced that is not for everyone, but I am convinced it is for us. You know what I mean? And so, and I heard someone talking about this idea that, that we all have assignments on earth, and, just from a stewardship perspective, like, our assignments are likely tied to the amount of money that God has entrusted us with. So he's entrusting us with the right amount of money, the right situations, the right giftings, whatever, all these different things, so that we can fulfill what he's put us on the earth to do. And so that's just going to be different for a lot of different people, for everybody, really. We all have unique assignments. And so because of that, this is our assignment. This is what we've done there. And it's just going to look different for, you, Nikki, and for everyone else. But kind of coming a little bit more closer to, I want to get that out first, but coming more towards your question a little bit, in terms of balancing it, what's been so great about this thing for us, and this thing that God has led us to do, is that I don't really feel like I had to think about that very much, because when we were giving 10% or 11%, somewhere in there, I felt like I had to think through this a lot, where it's like, all right, how much should I give? How much should I save? And I'd pray about it and kind of try to get direction from God. But since we've been doing this, it's been a really, great thing for us, because it's created just the right amount of tension for us. Whereas, because when we're given 41% of our income now, there's not a whole lot of extra margin on top of that anymore, and if we were only given 10%, we'd have too much money. We'd have too much money. We wouldn't know whatever. I think we would just be sloppy in our spending. I think that's what it would come down to. And so, Anyway, so we've just found that to be a really, really helpful tension. And I think in general, percentage giving is great for that. Whatever your percentage is, just continue to try to increase it. One of the things we talk about in the book, the last challenge that we have in this book is what I call the 1% challenge, where we're challenging people to increase their savings and giving by 1% every year. And the reason is that you'll never feel it. You'll never even notice. So I've never met a single person who has increased their giving by 1% or increased their saving, either one by 1%, and came back and said, "Oh, Bob, that was so hard. Like my whole budget was screwed up because I increased by 1%. Like no one ever says that. And they say the opposite. They say, I didn't even feel it. And sometimes if it's a 5% increase, they say, I didn't even feel it. And so if you can just do this 1% every single year, you'll get 10 years down the road and you just increased both by 10%. And if you do that, like you are set up for such a fantastic financial life, and not just a financial, like from an earthly perspective, but also thinking about your financial success from an eternal perspective, like continuing to prioritize giving and increase it. There's just so much power there.
That is huge. Huge. Thank you, Nikki Brown. Great question. That was phenomenal question. Sir, what advice would you give to that young man, that young girl out in the audience? What would you say to them who's listening out in the audience right now, who thinks they don't have time to devote to improving their finances? They don't have any extra money in their budget to save and give to others. I'm just trying to hold me together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
What would you say to them? What advice would you give to them right now?
Yeah. Well, the first part, not having time, back to part of why we named this Simple Money Rich Life, and like our approach is that, yeah, like you might not have time to do what all the crazy, hyper spreadsheet, whatever, spend 20 hours a week on managing your money. Like, yeah, a lot of us don't have time to do that, but there is a far simpler approach that is really effective. And it just doesn't require nearly as much time as you think to do well financially, and to manage your money well. It's, especially with all the tools available to us today, it's just a much easier thing than I think a lot of people realize. And then in terms of the part of just not having much to manage, like I think it's a question a lot of people ask a lot. It's like, well, how do I budget, or how do I give when I don't have anything? I don't have enough, And I think the first thing you have to realize is that you're never going to have enough until you start doing those things. That's the thing that is so counterintuitive about it all. So sometimes people will say, I don't make enough money. I don't have enough money to budget. And it's like, okay, well, that's fine. But you're not going to help yourself get in a position of having enough money to budget until you start budgeting. That's where it begins. And so one of the analogies that I use a lot of times is, I have this canoe. We bought this blow up canoe, or blow up raft, kayak, I guess it is. And me and my 8-year-old son, we take it out in the lake sometimes. And I was thinking about it. If I'm sitting out on that lake and all of a sudden he and I are in there and there's 5 holes, just suddenly there's 5 holes all spread out throughout this kayak. I probably can't plug all 5 of them at once, but I might be able to put my hand on like 2 of them, or maybe my feet on 2 of them, maybe one hand on the other or something. But the point is that I want to do something. Like if I do nothing, I'm just going to sink. If I start plugging as many holes as I can, I might be able to row back to the shore without sinking. Do you know what I mean? So the point is, like when it comes to our money and our finances, like even if you're in a tough spot, a tough financial spot, like you want to try to do something and just make it less bad. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you're just going to quickly sink. But if you attempt to make it just less bad than it can be, just by plugging some holes, just by trying to do a budget, even though it's not working out perfect, it's still going to improve things and give you a better chance to get on the shore and get on some solid footing so that you can move forward.
Facts. I want to give him a microphone. I want to give him another microphone so he could drop it. That is facts right there, and that's huge. You're right. Do something. Take action. Right. The Bible speaks to that. Take action. Right. The 3 parables. You look at any example throughout the Bible, but take action. Doing nothing. You're not gonna go anywhere. Sir, this has been incredible, phenomenal. How can my audience get a copy of the book, and how can we learn more about you and connect and grow with you and
Sure.
get to a better financial standing?
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Marcus. Yeah. So the book's called Simple Money, Rich Life. You can find it anywhere. It's like all the different places. And yeah, and my wife Lynn and I were podcasters as well. It's just Seed Time Money, like seed you plant in the ground. And we're on Instagram at Seed Time. Come visit us over there. But yeah, send us a DM. Love to say hi and connect.
Absolutely. And it's an incredible podcast. Seed Time Money. That's Seed, SEED, Time Money for my audio listeners. And the website is the same thing, www.seedtime.com. And again, the book is on Amazon. It's out. Get your copy today. Get a copy of the book today. Simple Money. It's called Simple Money, Rich Life. And he keeps it simple because this is the next best thing. Like I said, to the Bible and any other financial books, they keep it simple and plain, and they do it God's way. Mr. Lotich, thank you for giving us time today and sharing these golden nuggets on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you. And I want to say this to you publicly. Don't ever quit. Don't ever stop what you're doing, because we need you. We need what you're doing. You and your wife is so important.
Amen. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks, Marcus, for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And thank you all, my audience, for tuning in to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I hope this message has served you guys. I hope this helps take your mindset and shift your mindset to the better perspective, a different perspective of finance and doing things God's way. Give it a try. If you're not used to doing any of these tips, try him, right? He also asks you to try him and see what happens from there. I love you guys. I gotta give Mr. Lotich back. He has many more lives to touch, many more families to impact, and many more coaching sessions to do, him and his team. I want to leave you guys with this. Like I always end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show and Bob Lotich, seedtime.com, doing it the right way. Love you guys. Bye.